Thanks, Felicia.
You're welcome.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Woo-hoo. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to kind of go over a general overview of our brand new Mod Podge resin, and we'll show you one of our favorite techniques using the new Mod Podge resin. We'll talk about embedding and how to incorporate dried flowers into all of your resin projects.
Yeah, we're really excited. This is, like Emma said, our brand new product that is at Michaels stores right now. You can get it in store and on michaels.com. And resin is just such a humongous trend. Like you see, if you go on Pinterest or on Instagram, resin pours are everywhere. It's so exciting. There's about 1 million things you can do with it. We can't possibly cover them all in this class, but we are going to touch on a few. And like Emma said, this class, we're going to sort of focus in on how to use dried flowers and embed different things into your resin projects. But please keep in mind, we have a bunch of Michaels classes coming up this month. And outside of our Monday night paint nights, I think we're talking all about, we've got a couple different ones in there, but mostly about resin in all of our Michaels classes this month. So if you like this class, make sure to come back because we're going to be doing paint pouring and, you know, we're doing dry flowers today. We're doing all kinds of stuff for resin. So make sure to come back and check out those classes. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's give everybody another minute to make sure everybody's in the room before we get started and start getting more informational. So, yeah.
So guys, we'd love to know while we're waiting for everyone to join us, if you've ever used resin before, what you're excited to learn today, what kind of resin projects you like to work on. We'd love to know all of that info.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome.
Karen said they just started using resin. C said, I have never used resin. Dawn is new to resin. So we have a lot of new people here. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna let you guys know all the basics you need to know, how to stay safe and how to mix your resin. We're gonna talk about curing times and things like that. So this is a perfect class for you guys today.
Yeah. And I think, Melissa, if you want to go ahead, I think we're ready.
Okay, cool. So like I said, I'll repeat myself a little bit. My name is Jessie Jennings. I'm a content creator here at Plaid. And we've got Emma Panuski there too, moderating for us today. So if you have any questions or comments throughout the class, please pop them in the chat and Emma will either answer them herself. She also knows all about resin, or she'll relay them to me and I'll try to answer them out loud. So we're gonna spend the first part of the class kind of talking about the product and going over some information. I'm gonna walk you through some of these products I have here. And then, as a lot of you may know, if you've used resin before, I'm gonna put my respirator on. So we're gonna do all the supplies, don't worry. For the second part of the class, I'm gonna have my respirator on while I'm crafting with the resin. And Emma's gonna talk us through and let you guys know what I'm working on just so you can hear better. It's a little bit muffled when I'm wearing the respirator, so I want to make sure you guys can hear all the information.
Totally.
Okay. So I want to show you guys a little bit of inspiration. So you saw in the project listing, we have these really beautiful floral coasters. So all this is just like a little candle dish that you can buy at Michaels. And then these are actually silk flowers. So it's a little bit different than the dried flowers. You can totally use dried flowers for this, but you can see you can use silk flowers as well. And then we've got these really beautiful, like little gold leaf specks in them. And then we poured resin over it and it looks like glass. It looks like it's in the glass, as you guys can see. You can't tell the difference between the resin and the glass itself. So really pretty projects. We're gonna be making these today using a silicone mold. So I think in the listing it said a silicone mold of your choice. Michaels has tons of great options for silicone mold. I know they've got some coaster molds on michaels.com. And again, lots of options for all different kinds of molds. So make sure to check that out. But there's lots of different things you can do with the coaster molds. So I want to show you guys here. This is a little coaster we did using this little, this cute little mold here. And we just put some glitter in and we put some seashells in. It looks like there's some alcohol ink in here, but just to kind of show you guys like the variety of looks you can get with resin. And it looks really pretty. It's clear, so you can see all of the glitter shining and see all of the seashells shining. So just another little embedding project that we did. Here is another coaster we did using the exact same mold, and we mixed the resin with paint. So you can see here, it's pretty opaque, and that's because we just used folk art paint, you know, our favorite paint here at Plaid. We used folk art paint to put in, and we mixed it into the resin, which we'll be talking about that in future classes. And we poured it into our mold, and we got this really awesome sort of opaque rainbow look. And then here's another fun embedding one where we use some alcohol inks. So Michael's got tons of alcohol inks. They've got a great selection of resin supplies and accessories. So make sure to check those in store and on michaels.com. We just did some clear resin, and then we dropped some alcohol ink in there and swirled it. Here, I'll make sure you guys can see it. You swirled it, and then we added some glitter, and you get this really beautiful clear. It almost looks like an ocean. And then another fun one that we wanted to show you is this one here. So another great thing about resin is that you can personalize things. So this coaster is awesome. We use the same gold foil that we'll be using today, so we'll get to that in a few minutes. We just put a photo. This is just a printer photo. We printed this out right on our inkjet printer. We put some resin in, we put the photo in. You kind of layer it up this way, which again, you guys will see that in a few minutes. We added the gold foil, and you have this really awesome personalized coaster. So, I mean, imagine making a set of these for Mother's Day, Father's Day, just for your own home. Like, this is such a beautiful gift to make. So another really fun way to personalize things using resin. Also, you can do jewelry. So jewelry is super fun using resin. As you can see here, this is going to be using the technique we're going to show you today, using these awesome dried flowers. So you can dry your own flowers. You can purchase dried flowers. You can use small silk flowers. You can really embed almost anything in resin. So we just we had a little mold, a little jewelry mold here. We put some really pretty little flowers in here, and we just added a chain. And it's this really pretty little necklace. But you could just, it's like completely endless, the kind of things that you can make with resin. So here's another little piece of jewelry we made. So here's a little bit of a little pendant mold as well. As you can kind of see here, I'll hold it up so you guys can see better. We did a layer of resin that we colored with paint. So you can see it's opaque on the back. So that was one of the layers. And then we put a layer of clear resin, and we added the gold foil. So it's nice and shiny, and you get a really beautiful layered look. So like it's up to your imagination. The possibilities are endless. Again, we just added a chain.
So just to interrupt you real quick, someone had a good question. They wanted to know if like the jewelry molds that we used had a hole in the mold, or if we put that hole in ourselves.
That is an excellent question. So a lot of times when you buy jewelry molds, which I know that Michaels has some really great pendant silicone molds. They have them in the clay section and in the resin section. So make sure to check that out. A lot of times they do come with a little spacer, so the resin kind of goes around it and you get that hole automatically. But if not, if you just have like small shape molds and you want to make jewelry out of it, it's really easy to drill holes in resin. So just the way you would drill holes in wood or any kind of other, plastic material or something, just carefully. You can use one of those little hand drills. If it's something that's much larger, you can use like an actual drill. But yeah, you can totally drill holes in resin, or you can buy the molds that already have the holes in them for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then someone else had a good question. They wanted to know if you had to dry the flowers or if you could put fresh flowers in your resin.
That is an excellent question. I am going to go out on a limb here and say you can probably use fresh flowers. I've seen people do it. I just haven't personally done it, but I've seen people do it on TikTok and Pinterest and things like that. So I've seen people embed other fresh sort of items like food and stuff, which I wouldn't recommend, but I've seen people do crazy stuff with resin and it works. So I think you probably could use fresh flowers. I just like to use the dried flowers because, you know exactly what it's like over time. Over time, the fresh flowers, they might get brown in your resin. They might discolor, that kind of thing. So fresh flowers may work, but I think dry flowers are probably a little bit safer.
Yeah, I agree. And it's so important to keep that ratio of your part 1 and your part 2 when you're using your resin. You don't really want to add too many liquid additives just to keep your resin
right. And flowers have that moisture in them. You're totally right on it. It might leach out to your resin. You may not know what's going to happen. So yeah, see, someone said it could get moldy. I agree. I think that dry flowers are probably safer. Okay. So here's another little keychain we did. It's the same idea. I just want to show you how many possibilities there are using this amazing Mod Podge resin product. Here, I'll have it here so you guys can see the box as I'm talking. So this is like a cute little gem mold, like a little geode, gem crystal looking thing. And so we put some alcohol ink and resin in the bottom, and then we embedded a seashell. So I know that we all go to the beach, we all go on family vacations, and we collect seashells and we bring them home and we do nothing with them. So a lot, I don't do anything with my seashells, and I'm always like, oh, I'm going to craft them. I'm going to turn them into jewelry. And I never do. So this is such an awesome craft to do, and a really good way to use those seashells that you and your family collect at the beach and really just preserve those memories forever. So I love this one. And then, like I was saying here, we drilled a little hole in it. So we took one of those little eye hooks. That's what they're called, right? The little eye hooks. And we just screwed it in, and it screwed in really easily to the resin. So you can put that in while the resin is still curing, and it'll just cure right around it, or you can just screw it in after and it won't crack it or anything like that. So we have this nice little dangly keychain to put our keys on. And here's another one. So this is the same mold you can see here. as this flower when I showed you, but we filled it with glitter and then we let it cure. And then we painted this cute little flower just using regular acrylic paint. We let that dry and we poured more clear resin over it. And now you have this awesome little layered flower. And the paint's not going to come off because we put the resin right over it. The paint is embedded in the resin as well. So it's never going to come off. Super durable, super sturdy, but it's using the same exact mold. So just to show you guys like all the different things you can do.
Totally. That's a great representation of how versatile resin is, because it's the same exact mold. Obviously, it's the same resin, but they look so different and they both are such a different, unique style.
Yeah, exactly.
So, sorry, just to interrupt you again. Someone had a good question. They said they just saw on the box that it says it's food safe. Can you explain a little bit what that means?
I can totally explain what it means. So unlike a lot of craft projects, our resin is food safe. So that means that if your food touches it, is after it's completely cured, I want to say, after it's completely cured, it is food safe. So if your food touches it, if you're using it on plates or tumblers and things like that, which I can talk about in a second, it is safe. The only time that I would recommend not using the resin on something is people are always asking about cutting boards, which Emma has a couple cutting boards she can hold up for you guys, which is a huge trend, like pouring resin with paint on cutting boards. And it's still food safe if you wanted to use it to like put cheese and stuff on. I just wouldn't recommend actually cutting on it. That's the only thing, like slicing through the resin with like a really sharp knife. You may just damage the finish of the resin and it might mess up your project. So you can see there, like the wood part, you can totally slice on that wood part next to the resin. You can put, your food on the resin, that's fine. But it is completely food safe.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so since we kind of were just talking about paint, I want to show you this really fun project. So this was just like an old, you can see here I painted it, like a really old wood bowl that we had floating around the studio. And I painted it navy. And then I layered up a painting inside of it. So I've seen lots of really cool ones done with like koi fish, like goldfish, like things that just blow my mind, like layered paintings that I never could wrap my head around. But I thought I could do it with this daisy, so I gave it a shot, and it was super duper easy. So I did the leaves, and then I poured some resin and let it cure, and then I did another layer of petals. This is a patient project for sure. You have to wait a while to get this one done. And I poured the resin and let it cure, just layer upon layer of paint and resin, and you get this really pretty. You can see how it looks like that. Like the flower is 3D in there, but it's not. It's just painted with folk art paint. Isn't that cool?
Absolutely.
And then this is also food safe. So I could put, candies in here or whatever and have it in my home, and it's completely safe now that it's super duper cured. You guys can hear how hard it is. So another really fun, that's one of my favorite projects. And since we're still talking about resin being food safe, we can get into tumblers. So tumblers is like a humongous trend. It is all over the internet. People love making tumblers with resin, with our Cricuts, with paint, with glitter, with all the things. So our resin, since it is completely food safe, it is great for making tumblers. So you can see here, this is just a super inexpensive thermos that we got at the store. Michael's has lots of great surfaces like this, like thermoses and things like that. And we just Mod Podge some glitter on it, and we poured resin. And you do need to invest in one of those tumbler spinners. So that is an important part to note for making tumblers. You do need it to be continuously turning like that while it's curing, or else you're going to get drips. So just keep that in mind. But it's really easy to do. Don't let it intimidate you. Michael's has some great tumbler turners, I'm pretty sure. You can get them super inexpensive. But yeah, you just literally just pour the resin on there, smear it, with a palette knife or a popsicle stick, and just let it cure overnight. And you have this really pretty, super duper cute tumbler. Here's another one we do with glitter. So like I said, you can use Mod Podge with Mod Podge resin. So you can use all these products together. So you can Mod Podge glitter onto your tumbler, let that dry, and then coat the whole thing in resin, in Mod Podge resin, and you get this really beautiful, hard, durable, shiny look. And it's totally food safe, like I said. So you can, unlike when you're, painting cups with paint and stuff, you kind of want to avoid the lip because you really don't want to be ingesting the paint. This can go right up to the lip. You can totally put your mouth on it, and it protects all of the glitter and all of the paint underneath it, and it is completely food safe. So these are just everywhere. Like people are making these all over the place. I have like friends who have started resin tumbler businesses who I didn't even know they were crafters. So this is a really fun trend that we're excited that we can participate in now. And here's another one too. So it's great. You can stencil your name on it. I know a lot of you guys have your cutting machines at home, whether it's Cricut or Silhouette or whatever it is that you have. You can do your vinyl letters and then coat it with resin so it is super duper durable. So vinyl is pretty durable, but it only goes so far as tumblers and using this every day, just wear and tear and things like that. So it's a really great idea to use Mod Podge resin to coat your tumblers after you've applied your vinyl, and that keeps it on forever.
So Jess, we have a lot of questions.
Awesome. Please, I feel like I'm just like talking.
Yeah.
So lay them on me.
We have lots of questions. Okay, so Elaine wanted to know, are these dishwasher safe, the tumblers, once you apply resin to them and they've cured?
Whenever here at Plaid, we kind of have like our catchphrase, if you hand make it, you should hand wash it. So I would go ahead and I would hand wash these just to be on the safe side, because you don't want it sort of affecting your tumbler over time. The dishwasher and the detergents you use in the dishwasher are just so hard. Anything I ever make, with my hands, I just like to hand wash it.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Can you use a photo on the tumbler? Can you embed a photo?
Oh my God, 100%. You can absolutely use a photo. So you can see here, it's not a tumbler, of course, it's our little coaster here, but we put a photo in here. So it's the same thing. You could Mod Podge photos all over this tumbler and then coat the whole thing in resin, and they will be preserved on your tumbler forever. What an amazing gift. We've got Mother's Day coming up and Father's Day coming up, like to put a picture of your family to give to your mom or your sister or your brother, whoever. That's a super amazing gift idea.
Okay. So Jess, we had another question in the beginning too. Someone wanted to know, they said wearing a respirator when you use resin.
Yes. So there are definitely some safety precautions you want to take. Resin, unlike most of our products here at Plaid, we always say it's water-based and non-toxic. Resin is toxic. So you need to be careful while you're working with the resin before it has cured. You need to be careful and protect yourself, which I'm going to get into all of the safety stuff in a minute before we actually start crafting. So make sure to keep that in mind. This is something that you need to do in a well-ventilated area. You need to have full protective, gear and things like that, which is simpler than it sounds. I know it can sound kind of intimidating, but it's really not. But yes, I'll get into all of that in just a minute.
Right. And this isn't unique to Mod Podge resin. You should, practice this PPE for most epoxy resins that you use.
Right. Any sort of like 2-part epoxy, you should always be wearing a respirator. You should always be using your organic vapor cartridge or whatever is recommended for that particular resin. So it's not just Mod Podge resin. This is just like any other resin that's on the market right now.
Yeah, we just want everyone to be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to fit you guys. You want everybody to make really pretty projects and be safe while they're doing it.
Absolutely. All right, Jess. So are you ready to get started?
I'm ready to get started. Okay. So I guess now's the time where I'll talk about, I feel like I have so many projects I want to talk about, but Emma can talk about them while I'm crafting. So I want to talk about safety. So you guys asked, and I'm really glad you did, because it really is important to talk about safety when you're working with resin. So as you can see here, I want to protect my surface from the resin. So I have this nice silicone mat here. I recommend just, picking yourself up a nice big silicone mat if you're planning on doing lots of resin, but you can totally use wax paper or just like a plastic table covering from the dollar store or whatever you have laying at home, a trash bag, something like that. Just want to protect your table because, once resin is on something and it cures, it is permanent. So you don't want to get resin on your tabletop. As you can see here, while it's important to protect your surface, it's even more important to protect yourself. So I got my apron on here. I'm protecting my clothes. And I recommend keeping all of your resin supplies together in its own separate bin from the rest of your crafts. And again, that's just keeping yourself safe. You don't want your uncured resin getting onto your paints or your glitters or your other things that you use for your crafting. You want to kind of all stay together. So I'd like to use just one of these bins, and this is my resin bin. This has absolutely everything I need to work with my resin in this bin, so I can just grab it and start crafting right away. So I'm going to show you guys what I have in here. Grab some water first. Okay, so the first thing we've got here is our Mod Podge resin guide. So this is really important and it's really simple and easy. So we've put together this guide for you guys. It goes into detail about all the safety and all the supplies and everything that you need to work with Mod Podge resin. And this is a free downloadable guide that you can get on plaidonline.com/Mod Podge resin. So print this out. I like to keep a copy of it in my bin here so I never have to worry about, remembering, a certain time to mix things. There's times we have to mix it and things like that, or curing times and things like that. I always have my guide here. Made it super simple for you guys. It's really easy to follow all of the protocol. Of course, I've got my Mod Podge resin. So I don't think I talked about this yet. It comes in 2 different sizes, which is awesome. So depending on the kind of project that you're going to be making, you can purchase the 8 ounce. So by 8 ounce, it's really 16 ounces because, like I said, it's a 2-part resin. So you have 8 ounces of the first part and 8 ounces of the second part. And when you mix them together, you have 16 ounces in total of resin for crafting. And then this one is half the size. So you have 4 ounces of the first part and 4 ounces of the second part. And together you have 8 full ounces of resin to craft with. So it depends on what you guys are working on. If you have a larger project, like tumblers and things like that, maybe you want the bigger one. If you're making little things like jewelry or just coating, you know, clay jewelry and things like that is really big right now. You might want the smaller one.
And I'll interrupt you real quick, Jess. Some people are asking about that safety page. I just put it in the chat. So if you guys are curious, I listed the link in the chat for you guys to find.
Yeah, and it's so easy. Like we've just laid it all out really organized for you guys, just so it's super easy to follow. So like I mentioned before, I want to use my respirator with my organic vapor cartridge. So make sure to do it in a well-ventilated area. You know, if you're home and there's nobody around, make sure to open your window and have a fan or something. You want that air moving. You don't want to be sitting in that resin air. In your garage, outside is great, just somewhere that's well ventilated. So I got my organic vapor cartridge on my respirator here. And you also, of course, want gloves. So you don't want to be working with resin with your bare hands. I've seen YouTube videos of people working with resin with their bare hands, and I like cringe because you want to make sure to be wearing gloves. So these are impermeable nitrile gloves. So you don't want to use latex. You want to use something that the resin won't go through. So these are super easy to get on like Amazon and stuff. So you want to make sure you get the nitrile gloves. And then I've got want to protect my eyes as well. So I've got just some really cute little eye protective wear here. So just something to keep the fumes from just going right into my eye, make sure nothing splashes and things like that. Whatever you've got at home is good. And then I've also got cups for mixing. So when you're doing your 2 parts of resin, it's super important that you get the exact amounts of part 1 and part 2. So I like to have these really handy dandy little mixing cups. They come with little measurements on them, which isn't super crucial, but they're really easy to find. And it just makes it that much easier to get the exact measurements of both parts. So I like to have these around, but I also have these little tiny ones. So these are great too. I believe these actually, you get a few of these with the resin when you purchase it. So they also, for smaller projects, have the little measurements on them so you can measure them easily, part 1 and part 2. So I like to have those in my box. People always ask too, a lot of you are worried about the environment and worried about waste and things like that, which I appreciate so much. So you can also use silicone cups. So when you're mixing your parts 1 and part 2, you want to go ahead and grab yourself some silicone cups. So you can clean them and reuse them over and over. Just let the resin cure right in them. And then you can just pull it out because it doesn't stick to silicone. Okay, you want to make sure you have some stir sticks. And I know this is a lot, guys. Don't feel like you need to take notes or anything because all of the information is on plaidonline.com/modpodgeresin. So you don't need to print it. Just pull it up in your computer and just have it there for reference. But I like to have some stir sticks. So popsicle sticks, you know, toothpicks if you're using a very small amount, anything like that is good. Dowels. And then you have to have something to get rid of the bubbles, which you don't have to, but it's recommended you have some sort of heat tool to get rid of the bubbles. So you can just use one of these little like butane lighters you can get at the gas station, super inexpensive. Or you can use a craft heat gun, which I know a lot of you probably have at home. So this will also get rid of the bubbles really easily. Or if you don't have either of those, you can just use 90% isopropyl alcohol. So you've got some rubbing alcohol in your first aid kit at home. You can just spray that on the surface of your resin before it cures, and that will pop any of the bubbles you have at home. Okay, and then last but not least, what I like to keep in my little resin box here is a timer. So like I said, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's important to mix your resin for a certain amount of time and then to let it sit for a certain amount of time. And I don't want to touch my phone. When I've got resin all over my hands, I just try to avoid touching my phone. So this is a super like cheap little timer that I like to keep in my box. Just makes it super easy. I only use it when I'm working with resin. I just keep it in there so I always have it. And I think that is it as far as, oh, and baby wipes. I always like to have baby wipes when I'm working with resin or any craft really, just to keep things nice and clean. Any questions on those, Em?
Someone wanted to know, how do you clean your reusable like silicone cups? Like, could you wash them in the sink if they're just the part 1 or the part 2?
No, I would not recommend washing resin down the drain, even if it's uncured, especially if it's uncured, really. I would wipe them out with like a baby wipe or something like that to get them nice and clean. Or you can use like a paper towel that's got rubbing alcohol and wipe it out that way and dispose of it properly. But also, like I said, if you mix it together in a silicone cup, it'll cure in there. And then you can literally just peel it out. Like it'll be in a cup shape. You know, if you come back tomorrow after 24 hours after your resin is hardened, you can just pull it right out and it's basically clean. That's why I like the silicone mat too. Because if I spill resin on it, just let it cure and then just peel it right up.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay, so people are probably getting impatient, I think, to start crafting. I know it's been a lot of talking for this class, guys.
We want to make sure you're all prepared and you're all safe when you're working with resin.
Yeah, so really quick too, I should probably mention the stuff you need for this particular project, but I've talked about it a little bit. But today I've got some, just any silicone mold you have at home. I'm using these great coaster molds, which you can find on michaels.com. You can grab coaster molds, or like I said, any mold that you want, jewelry molds, whatever. I've got my dried flowers here. You can totally use your fingers for the dried flowers, but I've just got little tweezers here to make my life easier. And I got my gold flakes. So some sort of gold flakes or metallic, gold leaf, things like that we'll be putting into our coasters today. So something like that. Beads are great, anything you've got at home for crafting, you can embed in your resin, basically. Any other questions before we get started?
Nope. Everyone is appreciating all these little tips.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know it seems like a lot, guys, especially if you've never worked with resin before, but once you kind of like sit down and, look into that PDF, it's really much simpler than it seems. Once you just get all the supplies you need, it's a very simple 2-part process. You just want to make sure that you're safe while you're doing it. We want to make sure that you're safe while you're doing it. So just as a reminder, once I put my respirator on, we're going to switch to overhead because I'm going to be a little bit muffled. So Emma is going to talk you through as I'm crafting to kind of let you guys know what I'm doing and to answer any questions you might have. So here we go. Make sure it's nice and tight.
Yes, and we can kind of hear you a little bit.
Okay, cool. Got my glasses on.
Yep.
Grab my gloves.
So someone just asked, and I'll answer that. So they're using bigger dried flowers. Do they need to flatten them? So Jesse's going to show us everything we need to know about using dried flowers with resin. And once we kind of get started, I can share with you guys some tips on how to embed your flowers if you have some thicker flowers.
I got my 3 cups here. I've got 3 cups for mixing, guys. We recommend pouring it in 1 cup and then part 2 cup and then the cup you're going to mix them in. So Emma can just walk us through as I'm going.
Okay, so right now Jesse's getting her 1 part resin, and she's about to add it into her cups that have a measurement on them. So the important thing is you just want to make sure that it's totally 50-50. That's why we like to have these measured cups so that we can just really be careful about the ratio and make sure that they're exactly 50-50. So she's adding that right there. So I'm reading your questions too, you guys. So, and again, just reminding you all, we have that, Jesse ran through that safety information pretty quickly. So make sure to go to that link that I sent in the chat for that PDF of our safety guide that we've curated for you guys. And so how do you cure it? That's a great question. So this is not UV resin. You just have to let this sit after you've mixed it and combined it. And Jesse's going to show us how, but you just need to let it sit, and that's how it's going to cure. So right now, Jesse's adding her part 1 into a separate cup. And we like to do this just to make sure that we get both mixtures totally together and incorporated into a single space, into that single cup. So that's why we like to have those measurements there. So she's just making, really sure to scrape it all into that cup. I feel like I'm like a sports commentator, you guys.
That's okay, though. It's okay. I feel bad I can't talk.
I know. No, we can kind of hear you a little bit.
Part 2.
Okay, so someone said how much resin to pour into your cup. So just the only thing is you just want to make sure that you get 1 and 2 parts 50-50. And then how much resin just really depends on the project that you're making. So obviously if you're going to be making, pouring it over a canvas, it would be a little bit more resin than if you're using like a small earring mold. Yep, and then someone answered that. So you could use as much as you want. Just make sure it's, you know, a 1-to-1 ratio. And so Jess, we can kind of hear you a little bit. So how fast do you have to work with this resin before it starts to cure?
So you want to be pretty quick with your resin. It takes you have about 40 minutes before it really starts setting up. So you want to kind of make sure all of your crafting is done within the first 40 minutes before it starts to really start getting thick and to start hardening. So I'm going to mix my resin right now, guys, for 3 minutes. I'm going to time myself. It's important to mix the two parts together for 3 minutes to make sure they're completely incorporated.
All right, so if you guys didn't hear Jessie just then, you have about 40 minutes to work with your resin before it really starts to harden on you. And right now, Jessie just set her timer for 3 minutes, and you just want to keep agitating that resin so that it can really be well incorporated. And then after the 3 minutes is up, you're going to wait 2 more minutes, and then your resin is ready to pour into either a mold or over a canvas or anything, but today we're using a mold.
Make sure that you scrape the sides and scrape the bottom. Make sure it's completely incorporated.
Yeah, and so some people are asking, can you work with your resin outside? Someone said, can you work with resin outside, or is the sunlight going to make it cure faster? You can totally work with your resin outside. It's a great question. So I'll write that in the chat. Yeah, I'll write that in the chat too. You have about 40 minutes of working time with your resin before it cures.
I'm just going to keep it moving for 3 minutes to make sure it's completely combined.
Totally. And so while Jessie's doing that, I just kind of want to show off a little show and tell with you guys. If you want to switch the view over to me, Felicia, if you don't mind. I have some really cute resin projects here. So this one we used our folk art pouring medium with our folk art acrylic paint, and we went ahead and poured that onto a canvas. And I don't think we've done a class like this before. We probably have with Michael's, but we make these faux geodes, and we just use like ice cream salt, rock salt, and then we mix it with Mod Podge gloss and really fine glitter. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but you get like these faux geodes. And then all we did is like I said, we poured our paint on here with our pouring medium. We added our faux geodes on top, and then we sealed in some glitter affix, some little fun additives, and then we sealed this with resin, and it's totally hard to the touch. So guys, just as another reminder, you know, all of our safety procedures, you should be doing all this stuff with, you know, all of your epoxy resin. We just want you guys to be as, you know, safe as possible. It's just good practices to have when you're working with any epoxy resin. This is not a unique thing to Mod Podge resin. Keep showing you guys. So this is also a super pretty little pour we did here with some really pretty pastel colors. And then I don't know if you guys can see in the light here, but we embedded these gold flakes in here. And of course we, again, covered it with resin.
Love that one.
Would you say you love that one?
Yeah.
And you can find a, you know, a respirator at your local hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one more, you guys. So Jessie was kind of saying before that resin is a great way to seal those, you know, memories. So I think Jessie's 3 minutes is up.
So now you want to wait for 2 minutes for your resin to settle. And the reason you're doing that is to let any bubbles rise to the top so we can remove the bubbles before pouring them. So Emma, do you want to repeat that just to make sure people heard?
Yeah, so after Jessie's done mixing her resin for 3 minutes, she's going to let it sit for 2 minutes. She's also going to, you know, hit it with a butane lighter just to kind of release some of those bubbles. You can also spritz it with some rubbing alcohol, and that will get rid of those bubbles. And then we'll do that again over once we've poured our resin. And so someone had a question. They see that really pretty mixed media piece with the dried flowers and the stenciled love in the newspaper. So what we did there is, actually I made that one. We Mod Podged some ripped up newspaper just onto an 8x10 canvas. And then once that was dry, thanks Jessie for being our show and tell artist today. Once that was dry, we went ahead and poured a thin layer of resin, and then we let that totally cure, like totally cure. And then we, Yeah, as you can see there. And then we stenciled the word love vertically down there with just some black paint. We have a really great sign shop stencil line at Michael's right now. That's our favorite stencils right now. So check that out. That'd be great for this project. And then so we let that paint dry. We put another layer of resin over it. And then we embedded some flowers. Obviously, that's what this class is about today. And Jesse's going to show us how to do that once her
This is just a canvas.
yeah, once our 2 minutes is up. And it's totally hard, you guys. It's a stretched canvas. It's not even illustration board or anything. And the resin makes, you know, it's totally cured. It makes it totally hard. But yes, it is a canvas. And we don't want you guys to be, yeah, we have some nervous watchers, you know, they see the respirator. We don't want you guys to be scared at all. We have that safety guide and just follow it and you'll be totally safe. You know, we've given you all of the information you need to know. We've made it super easy for you guys. You know, we don't want you to be hesitant to use Mod Podge resin. We just want you all to be as safe as possible. And like we said, you know, you guys should be doing this with all of your epoxy resin and just, you know, practicing proper safety protocol. And then once your resin is cured, it is, like we said, it's even food safe. So yeah. And if you do your resin outside, we still recommend that you wear a respirator. You know, it's a great area for ventilation, but we still would recommend to use a respirator to be safe.
Now guys, I'm using my little butane lighter to just remove any bubbles. So you want to just go lightly across the surface of your resin. You don't want to get too close. Stay a couple inches away from the surface and just heat the surface to remove any of those giant bubbles. And if you still have bubbles after you do that, don't stress because we're going to do it again when we pour the resin into the mold. We're just going to try to get some of those bubbles out as we go. Okay, so now the fun part.
Okay, so now Jessie has a little coaster mold and she's about to get ready to pour her resin inside. So Jessie's gonna pour this first layer of resin down and she just wants to make sure that it gets on all the edges, that it's you know, totally filled. And we're not gonna fill it up to the top because we want some space to press our flowers into and then seal that again once our flowers are in. So Jessie just making sure that it gets, you know, that it gets over the whole surface area right now of the mold.
I'm going to light it again with my lighter just to remove any of those bubbles as we go.
And someone asked, sorry to ask again. Don't be sorry. Sorry, I missed your question earlier. Should we preserve the flowers some way before doing this, or does this work as a preserving agent too? So we would just recommend to dry your flowers, you know, flatten them in a book or something, just dry your flowers. So that some people said earlier that they would be afraid that their, you know, alive flowers would start to mold. So just make sure that your flowers are, you know, dry and dehydrated. That's a great question. Okay, sorry, Jess. Okay, so now she's getting her her little tweezers and she's getting some of her gold leaf and she's just placing it in her resin. And this is great because you really get to be strategic about where you want all of your design to go because your resin is pretty thick. It's not just gonna, you know, start floating off. It has a really good control. You can totally control where you place your flowers or any kind of additives you want to put in your resin. And someone said, can you use alcohol instead of a butane lighter? You absolutely could use alcohol, or you can use a heat gun too. We've tried that and that works well. So you just need a little spray bottle of some rubbing alcohol. That's a great question. You know, we wouldn't recommend using a hair dryer because you really want that heat. So we would recommend either a heat gun, some rubbing alcohol in a spritz bottle, or obviously our butane lighter, which is
It also might blow it. You don't want the hair dryer to blow your resin.
You don't want your, you know, your design to be disturbed at all, and you don't want your resin to come outside your mold. And then someone said they have dried their flowers before in the microwave on a paper towel. So just be careful when you do that, but that's a great idea. Thanks for that tip. And how much alcohol would you use? You can see the bubbles popping. So you just want to spritz your alcohol on your resin and you'll be able to, you know, see how much you do. Okay, so right now, Yeah, so Jessie placed her gold leaf right now. And so now she's getting her dried flowers and she is gonna place those inside her resin too. And one thing I wanna mention, you guys, when you're using a mold or, sorry, we'll let Jessie continue real quick before I start.
Okay. You wanna make sure it's upside down. Keep in mind the layering. When we
That's what I was
demold
gonna
this in the mold, it's like this right now. So you wanna keep in mind when you take it out of the mold, it's gonna be flipped over. So you wanna make sure that your flowers are not upside down. You wanna make sure to put them upside down when you're putting them into the mold, because after it's cured, when you take it out, then they'll be right side up.
Yep. So if you didn't hear that, Jessie said, just be sure to be mindful that when you're using a mold, you're crafting upside down. So the part that's going to show is the other side of that mold. And so if you want your flowers to be right side up, you have to place them down into your mold, as opposed to if you were see that, little mixed canvas that we were showing earlier, the love canvas, you could just place that right side up, because obviously that's the side that's going to be shown. But when Jessie demolds this coaster, when she uses it as a coaster, it's going to be shown like the other way. I hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so someone said, how do you maintain the resin on a canvas? They've had troubles with dripping before. So we like to use, and everyone's answering your question amazingly, we like to use painter's tape, and we just like to tape off the back edges of our canvas. And so then when our resin dries and cures, when you remove the tape, the resin just comes off with it and you don't have any weird drips or anything. But our resin is self-leveling. So once you apply your resin to your canvas, you're not going to get any weird texture. It's not going to like stop. It's going to drip off and self-level. Okay. So right now, Jessie is just placing her flowers. This is the fun part, you guys. You get to make your own pattern. She's being mindful that she's crafting upside down right now.
Put some more gold.
She's adding a little bit more gold.
This will be behind my flowers.
Mm-hmm. And you can buy a silicone mat like this at Michael's. And so one thing too, so Jessie, she obviously filled a little bit of her mold with her resin in the beginning. And then she placed her flowers in. And so I don't think we have time in this class today, but a great tip is to is once you fill your resin, to let it dry for about 20 minutes so that your resin can cure a little bit and get sticky. And then when you place your flowers down, you can fill it again with more resin, and then you won't get like a bumpy texture and your flowers won't want to float up to the top. The resin will be sticky on the bottom, and so it'll kind of hold your flowers down.
Really good explanation, then. So now but we don't have time for that. So if you're doing it at home, you might want to just give it, 20 minutes or so, kind of let it get firmed up before you pour more resin on top of it. Because like Emma said, then they won't float. But since it's an hour-long class, we don't want to take up too much of everyone's time. I'm going to go ahead and add the resin back on top just to show you guys what you'll do.
So someone said, how can you make sure, for example, your flower petals are placed nicely? So you just have to be confident in yourself. I believe in you guys. I'm just goofing.
Good answer.
Yeah, you guys can, it's just, obviously you won't be able to see from the backside without your resin falling over.
You can try your best.
Yeah, you have to try your best. But that's the great part about resin, is that when you use dried flowers and you use resin, it always looks pretty. I mean, there's no way to do this wrong. Whatever you make at home, it's going to look amazing. Someone said, can I use a glass coaster? So you could use like a little votive like holder. That's what Jessie did with those and those silk flowers. So she did use a glass coaster, and then she, brushed on a little bit of resin to make it sticky. She placed her flowers down, and then she sealed that again with resin. And look how shiny it is. It just like looks like it's part of the glass. Isn't that pretty, you guys? So someone said, how long to wait before you pour in the second layer of resin? So like we just gave you guys that neat little tip. So you fill your resin and you just make sure that it's totally on every, corner of your mold. And then you wait 20 minutes and then you layer your flowers so that they hold onto, so that the resin holds onto the flowers. And then right away you can pour your second coat of resin. That's a great question.
So see, I didn't wait, guys. So you can see my flowers are kind of floating around a little bit, which doesn't bother me because it'll be pretty no matter what. But if I had waited and let them set a little bit and kind of start to firm up a little before pouring over the top coat, they wouldn't have floated so much. They would have stayed in place. So that's why we gave you guys that tip. You can see they started to float a little.
Totally. And so someone said, can plastic lids be used as molds? They, you can't remove the resin from the plastic lid because it's going to stick to it. But if you wanted the plastic lid to be a part of your project, then it would, the resin would definitely adhere to it. We actually have a great project we made on Michaels.com with some mason jar lids. So you guys should definitely check that out. Just type in Mod Podge Resin at Michaels.com and go to the little projects page. And we use some mason jar lids to make a really pretty project. So we'll check that out.
And I'm going to do the lighter again, guys, to remove any more of the bubbles.
Great.
Very lightly across the top.
Yeah, and so someone was asking the difference between, a matte mold versus a shiny mold. So obviously, it's just like in the name. If you use a matte mold, your resin will be more matte, and if you use, a shiny mold, your resin will be more shiny in the end.
So these are all shiny molds. You can see because they are literally shiny. If they were a matte molds, they wouldn't have any shine to them. It's really just how it sounds. So my project will be shiny if I use this shiny mold. If I had a mold that did not look like this, if it was frosty and matte looking, then I know my resin project would also be matte when I pulled it out. So good to keep in mind.
Yeah. And just so you know, Jess, we're about 10 minutes from the hour.
All right, well, I think I'm done, Em. I don't want to, I think we're good. Do we have any more questions, guys? That's really just how you do it. You would just keep layering and keep removing the bubbles. And I would just let this sit out overnight. I'd wait 24 hours before I demolded it. But here, I'll show you how to demold it. I'll kind of pretend for you guys for a second.
Yeah.
So say I did this one yesterday. I came back before pretending. I came back after 24 hours and now my resin is hardened. And so you want to gently pull the mold away from your resin on all of the edges. See how I'm doing gently here? So tomorrow I would gently pull away from all of the edges, make sure nothing's stuck. And then I would gently peel it out of the mold. And you're going to have a beautiful, shiny, hardened, durable, personalized coaster tomorrow.
Yes. And guys, if we didn't answer your question this time, first of all, we apologize for that, but I wanted to let you guys know when our next resin class will be, and we'll be doing something a little bit different. So our next resin class is April 16th at 1 p.m. Central Time, and we will be showing you guys how to do DIY resin tumblers. So you won't want to miss that. We'll give you all the ins and outs that you need to know to make some really cool tumblers using Mod Podge resin. Yep. And so Jessie has that guide right there. A big thank you to Michaels for allowing us to do this class with you all today. We love being able to do these classes and teach you guys a little bit about Mod Podge resin and sending you guys home with some inspiration. Like I said, make sure to tune in on April 16th for our next resin class. Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy Friday, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.